Mm-hmm. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another NextOppSocial chat. Welcome, NextOppSocial family. We're here having another live discussion on our YouTube channel. I am Richelle Wright Wilson. As always, I'm joined by Joanne Buford. And today we're going to touch on the idea of productivity. So how can you be more productive as a business owner? What makes you a productive entrepreneur? But before we jump into it, as always, if you're watching with us here, either live or on the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button here so you never miss an interview, a live, or any of these incredible discussions we have here at NextOppSocial. So to start, Joanne, when you brought up this topic, my mind immediately went to the sort of two schools of thought on how we approach productivity advice, right? Which the first is like, you hustle like crazy. Hustlers get shit done, right? They rise and grind. They hustle all day. They're exhausted by the end of the day because they were able to accomplish so much. So when I think about notable people who kind of embody this hustler advice, I think of like Elon Musk, right? He advocates for these 70, 80-hour work weeks. It is prone to burnout, but it's very hard to argue with his success, right? The second mindset, though, is working deliberately. And that means planning more before you get to work. When you are going to dive into that task, it's done with intention, right? And overworking is not usually what's happening. So when I think of someone notable in that realm, I think of like Warren Buffett, right? You know, he gets 8 hours of sleep. He has his set time of work. He focuses on, you know, a lot of his own personal goals. And just like Elon's success, it's hard to argue with Warren Buffett's success, right? So that's where my mind went, first of all, of just like how, and as you said before we went live, we could talk about this for hours, but how there's so many different ways to approach productivity in general.
You know, one of the things I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you is some advice that a business mentor gave me some time ago, and it was eat the fruit and spit out the seed, right? The bottom line is there's no one magic pill or strategy that's going to fit everyone because we're all different. Some of us are parents, some of us are not. Some of us have these academic backgrounds that other people don't have. Some of us have grown up in entrepreneurial families where a lot of the day-to-day thinking, habits, mindsets are just second nature. Some of us go through a different type of process, right? We have a different type of journey where we have to grow into entrepreneurship and the mindsets and attitudes and the philosophies that bring you the results that you're looking for. Everyone has a different journey, right? And I think about that a lot. Now, I guess when we talk about productivity, you know, the whole work ethic, you can't get around that, right? I tell people, look, don't get it twisted. Warren Buffett worked, and he works his day off, particularly early on, okay? And in business, when you're an entrepreneur, just don't get it twisted. You're going to have to do some things in the beginning that you're not getting paid for. So later on, you can be compensated for the things you no longer have to do, which means you're going to have to work. That's a common denominator of success. And so because of that, you have to accept the fact that you're going to get tired. You're going to get fatigued. And I just tell people, be wary of these gurus who get on our video screens and tell us that if you adopt this particular strategy, you'll never be tired again, and your life will just be all milk and honey. You'll just fall off into the cloud success. No, okay? There's going to be pain. Let me repeat that again. There's going to be pain, right? So that's first and foremost. Hustle is a common denominator of success. But the other thing I think about too is, you know, I'm a boxing fan. So I think about this metaphor a lot when I think about entrepreneurship. You know, you can have two boxers in the ring, and one boxer will have all the skill, all the talent, all the pedigree in the world. And then you'll have another boxer in the ring who's just a dog. I mean, it just won't stop coming at you, won't start gnashing, punching, elbowing, pushing. I mean, just applies the pressure with such intensity that it can wear down the more gifted athlete, right? Mm-hmm. With that being said, that can only take you so far, right? When you get into the ring with somebody who's has just as much dog in them as you do, but they have all the learning, they have all the skills, they have all the wisdom and wherewithal, they're gonna beat the brakes off you, right? And I think about entrepreneurship in much the same way. Yeah, work ethic is absolutely necessary, but there comes a point where you have to refine yourself, right? And when I think about productivity, I just assume that if someone's listening to this, and I hope that you already have that dog in you already have that great work ethic, you already have that really good engine, right? So let's just start there. And then you have to start thinking, okay, you know, I wanted to be a little bit unorthodox in this discussion and talk about things that people don't reflect upon. I think often enough when we talk about productivity, because you have all these different articles and once again, all these different videos are out there, but let's talk about some of the things that I think folks take for granted, right? And so when I think about productivity, one of the first things that I think about, maybe because I'm getting older, right? So I think about diet. I think about diet a lot, right? People don't reflect on that a lot. You know, the most tiring activity that your body has to perform on a day in and day out is eating, eating and digesting food. And I remember a number of months ago when I started my intermittent fasting. And I tell you, Shirley, I felt like I was 20 again. I felt like I was 20 again when I was really paying attention to what I was putting in my body. When I removed the breads, and look, I'm not here to tell people what to eat. I'm not a guru, a scientist, or none of that stuff. But I can tell you when I removed the bread, when I removed the pizza, when I removed the super duper sandwiches and hamburgers from the diet, when I removed all these things, and I went primarily to a plant-based diet, and I remained very cognizant of what I was putting in my body, I had so much energy. And I thought about this a couple of days ago. I literally ate a piece of pizza, something I typically just don't do, right? It's not something I do with any regularity whatsoever, but I cheated and ate a piece of pizza. And literally later on that evening, I felt like a piece of pizza. I felt soggy. I felt wet. I felt like I was dragging. I was like, what in the world is this? I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, dag, diet really has a type of impact on your body, right? And that's something I would strongly encourage people to consider. The time you eat, what you eat, it makes a huge difference in terms of energy. Because when we talk about productivity, what we're also talking about is energy level, right? How do you maximize your effort and energy with the time that you have, right? You know, that's something I thought about. You know, something else that I thought about that people really don't reflect on a lot. And you and I are a perfect case in point, right? Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you or more effective than you at certain things, right? That will increase your productivity tenfold. If you are the smartest person in your circle, or you're the most gifted or talented person in your circle, that's a problem. You got to get around people who have more talent than you in certain areas, who may be further along in terms of their journey, in terms of success, whatever that means to you. Those things will give you energy. You'll become much more productive, right? You can sit down with someone and learn something in 15 minutes rather than going through 5-10 years of your life learning that the hard way. You know, those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. You know, I can go on and on. So I'm gonna press pause for a moment because I got like 15 other things here on my list.
I think a good way to start too, especially with if you're someone who understands that you need to put yourself in a position with other individuals who not just know more than you, but know different things than you, that you can learn from, but are in your realm of world that you are in, want to be in, like the entrepreneurial small business world, things like masterminds, especially right now when we're not doing a lot of in-person networking, we're not meeting up and meeting a lot of new people, finding a mastermind group that you can be a part of. Sometimes they're free. The best ones cost thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars a year. But even just to find a mastermind group that you can be a part of, I cannot tell you how many times I'm a part of a mastermind group, and also, just like with anything else, it might take you a while to find that right fit for something like that. But there have been so many times where I could have easily not signed on to the call or joined the bi-monthly mastermind. And after those sessions, I always think like, oh, it's just I really should just take this time to do something else. I've got so much work to do. And after that 2 hours or whatever I've spent, there's never been a time where I haven't walked away going like, oh my God, I would have never gotten to that conclusion myself. I would have never gotten to that next idea on my own without having this. Sometimes they're just very organic discussions that lead to very big aha moments that in itself changed how my productivity was going to look moving forward. So I could have kept going on my hamster wheel of whatever, but things like masterminds and discussions like that are a great way to, dip your toe into that. But I'm glad you brought up diet, because I think as entrepreneurs, small business owners, we don't prioritize our health. Like, we just don't. And one way I've tried to look at it as to better prioritize my eating, sleeping, drinking water, exercising, is if you're someone that can really knock out your to-do list and checklist for the day, and because this is what was happening to me. I'm very much someone who can sit here and knock out my to-do list, right? And that kind of gives me that sense of accomplishment sometimes. I had to deliberately start adding those things to my to-do list, right? Because otherwise I'd be like, oh, I'll get to that when I get to that. But that had to be just as important as client work. That had to be just as important as marketing my business. That none of that was going to be successful if I wasn't here to do the work. So yes. That's just a big, big part of it. So yeah, I think that's super important. I think though too, that regardless of how you work, or if you feel that you're productive enough, I feel like the simple truth of it is that if you care about something enough, I'm not saying you have to love it or whatever, but if you care about it enough, you'll almost always find a way to do it. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be done the most effective way. You might be procrastinating to the last minute about it, or, you're beating yourself up sometimes that if you feel like the way that you tackled that wasn't at your most productive. But productivity in general, I feel like comes easily when you really do care about what you're doing and you have incentive enough to get it done. So
yeah, there's a quote out there by Warren Buffett. Since you mentioned him, it's got me thinking about some of the stuff I read of his. But he says one of the most productive things you can learn how to do is say no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you have maximum impact? And you say no to the things that don't align with your values. You say no to things that don't align with your interests. You say no to things that really don't align with where you're gifted at, right? Where your center of power is at. Now, in the beginning, sometimes you do a lot of different things. You need to learn a lot of different things. You need to learn those things. You need to explore those things early on, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes being in business just requires it. You got to figure out a way to create enough value prop out there to get people's attention before you can really serve them in a way that best maximize your talents and skills and your acumen, et cetera, right? So sometimes you're taking on a lot of different projects, but at some point you learn to say no, right? I'm thinking of a couple projects over the last 3 years I took on, that I performed, that I did, but it was a grind and it was a huge time waster because at the end of the day, my heart wasn't in it. And the only reason why I did it was out of feelings of obligation. And a lesson I learned there is that it's a lot easier to do things that you're passionate about that really line up with what gives you energy and things you feel like you're obligated to do. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to do that for yourself. You have to give yourself that sanity. It's hard to put your life's energies behind things that you aren't passionate about, that don't give you energy, that don't really serve you. And let's remember, part of being an entrepreneur, I just firmly believe that the reason why most of us choose to be entrepreneurs is because we want to do what we want to do, right? Seriously, you want a certain lifestyle. You want to be able to manage your time a certain way. You want to be able to give a certain way. You want to be able to spend time with people whom you really want to spend with, and activities and places and things you really want to invest. Look, don't deprive yourself of that, right? That is part of how you reward yourself as an entrepreneur, is finding ways to make what it is you enjoy doing, or communicate what it is you enjoy doing in such a way where people see it as valuable and be able to derive and be able to make a living from that, right? So I think about that a lot. I think one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself as an entrepreneur is this, and I don't think we do it enough. Number one, it's just, what are my priorities?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, really, what are my priorities? What are the things that I really value? What are the things I really enjoy about the work that I'm doing? Because you can find yourself chasing awards. You can find yourself chasing recognition. You can find yourself chasing attention, or just chasing things because it makes you look good in the eyes of others, or brings you a certain type of notoriety. But at the end of the day, you find yourself, you're going to feel empty, and you're going to get tired, and you're not going to want to do the work anymore, because you find yourself walking along a path that you had never intended in the first place. I mean, just to be transparent, right? We were having a conversation about NextOppSocial, right? When I think about when we started this journey, it was really about creating community, about finding individuals who are just as passionate about business development, and having these critical discussions, and leveling up ourselves, and finding other people and being a help to them as well, right? Finding that community of individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who just really enjoy business and entrepreneurship and seeing other people win. And it can be easy to start pursuing other things aside from that, right? For the sake of monetization, for the sake of a lot of different things. But when you really think about people who've really achieved, who've really succeeded, I mean, those success stories that we admire, and there's always exceptions to the rule, right? But what you find is they're 100% tuned in and focused on the thing that they're most passionate about their work, right? They're most passionate about the art of what it is that they do. And people see that, they gravitate towards that, they want to participate, and they're willing to pay for that, because they're willing to spend the energy and time required to become absolutely elite at it. And I don't think you can become elite at anything unless you're really passionate about it.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's one of the most important things you can do when you think about productivity. And I know for some of you, you're probably looking for some short-term hacks, but I firmly believe entrepreneurship is really a long-term game. It really is. I believe that at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, if you're really committed to this thing called entrepreneurship, it's about, what can I do today, tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, as best you can project, to ensure that you can play the game indefinitely, right? And when you start thinking about your business that way, your thinking changes, your mindset in terms of how you go about moving and how you think about productivity changes. What can you do, not just to make sure you're profitable today, but make sure you continue to play the game indefinitely, right? And when you think about that, once again, you start adopting different behaviors. You know, something that I'm guilty of, but I'm getting better at, is how much time are you setting aside per day to really think about the tough problems, to really think about the challenges, right? You know, for me, one of the ways that I kind of attack that problem is I read a lot. Anyone who knows me knows I'm usually reading 2 or 3 books at the same time. I'm knocking down anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 pages a day. Plus, I'm adding in podcasts and everything else. And oftentimes, I'm getting information that I can't use right then and there. I can't. There are times where I'm reading stuff, I'm like, I can't really use that. But it goes in the journal anyway. And I take inventory, and I literally write in the margins, oh, this is about ego. Oh, this is about IT. Oh, this is about this. This is about that. This is about leadership. And it just goes in the margins. So I can literally go back to my library, look at the margins if I'm looking for a particular topic, and I've inventoried it. It's like one of those things where they say, recruit your friends before you need them. Look, recruit the knowledge before you need it.
Yeah.
Right? Be in the process of learning, thinking, critically analyzing your surroundings and environment around you. And that will do wonders for your productivity when you don't have to go looking for the answers. You've already inventoried them.
Mm-hmm. I think right now too, I'm also guilty of just day in and day out getting it done. Like I was saying too, like, oh, I love a good productivity hack. I love a good organizational tool. I have used every planner known to man. I've almost bought an iPad just for the sake of using these beautiful digital planners. Like, why am I doing that? And there's a big part of my business where I teach and build systems and automation tools for business owners to systemize and organize these processes that actually just, they help you be more productive with specifically more your marketing. But I'm also guilty of just running that rat race forever. And I have been in doing this for so long now. I've started to recognize when I'm getting into those really just like grind habits that, again, there's nothing wrong with it, but I know it's not sustainable. So just like you're saying, like, what do I need to do and shift and think about very critically that's going to allow me to maintain this, or not maintain, just grow and be an entrepreneur forever. And, I've had a lot of opportunities come up here in the past few months that have quickly ramped up my work, but normally, and I would just get to work, put my head down and get it done. But I've started critically thinking more like, okay, what does scaling look like now? And what do I actually want 5 years from now? Because I think if you're here and you're looking for a productivity tip, a productivity hack, it's also to understand that your entrepreneurial journey is going to have seasons of some things are going to work for you to be more productive when, 6 months later, they're not going to be as effective for you. And you have to be willing and ready to shift what you have to shift so that you can continue that grind. It's not just like, oh, you work super hard for this period of time to like not work hard later on ever again or things like that. It just looks different. It looks different. The way that as you digest more information, as you learn more on whatnot, your thought processes and your questions that you ask yourself become bigger, right? They become bigger and they require more quietness, downtime, and space to work through those problems. Whereas if you're in this, like, how do I get more shit done? Well, then you're not there yet. So the productivity tips you need now aren't going to be the same as, down that line. I think this year has been a really, 2020 has been a real eye-opening experience for people around the idea of productivity, especially a lot of millions of people became at-home remote workers that were not used to that ever, did not choose that life, right? And had to learn how to balance that outside of, even their family life and whatnot. But just understanding, like, it's not that I'm saying pandemics are going to keep happening or whatnot, but that those are just like seasons in your entrepreneurial journey. They're going to change and they're going to evolve, and how you adapt to that has to shift as well. So if physically writing things down and checking them off helps you, great. If you need more visual reminders of alarms set and things like that pop up on your screen, great. If you need to set times where you work for 25 minutes and it's timed, and then you take a 10-minute break, whatever, it's at a certain point, these tips, you can take every tip in the book, but if it's just not, I think it's more important to think about Do you want to be doing this work? Is this what you're passionate about? Is this what drives you? Because it doesn't matter what tips you take. If it doesn't, then it's going to be very difficult to get anything done ever.
Yeah, you just said two things that caught my attention, right? The ideal of waking up, knocking down a to-do list, right? And I know everyone's felt this at a certain point. You're waking up every single day, you're knocking down the to-do list, you're making progress, you're getting things done, but you look up 6 months, you look up a year, 2, 3 years from now, and you feel like the calendar's moved, but I haven't moved, right?
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it boxing the repetitive, right? There are certain things that you should be doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Once again, eat the fruit, spit out the seed, right? However that looks like for you, where you are asking yourself, look, really, what are the activities that bring me the most growth? Not not just what the hacks or strategies are that gets me the most money at this moment, but what are the things that are really going to grow me, right? Or grow my business. You know, I'm thinking about three things that I've been really consistent with over the years that has, I know, contributed the most to the growth of my business and be able to play this game called entrepreneurship, right? The first being, everyone already knows, being a constant reader, right? A constant learner, like dedicating time to that. Whether it be 10 minutes, or however time you have, dedicate some time to it, 20, 30 minutes. What's going to grow me so I look up 5 years from now and I'm more than I am today,
Mm-hmm.
right? I purposely have in my calendar the objective to meet at least 10 to 20 people a day. And people say, well, how in the world do you do that in a pandemic world? It's called LinkedIn. It's called Facebook. It's called Instagram. you know, and that doesn't mean jumping on these platforms and just throwing up on people about what it is that you do and trying to sell them something. Sometimes it's just looking at someone's content and saying, that's interesting. I'm really glad you shared that.
Yep.
Maybe we can engage and talk about this. So I have an interest in what it is you're doing. I want to learn more, right? Because I know at the end of the day, people grow based on what you consume and what you read, but also the people around you, right? So if you're hanging around a bunch of 7 dull knives, you're going to be very dull later on down the line. So constantly looking for sharp people to interact with, right? That's something that you can do on a daily basis to make sure that you're further ahead than when you started today, right? Something else that I think about, you mentioned it, once again, boxing repetitive, right? Physical exercise. I learned from Tim Ferriss. I thought his book was so entertaining, right? He has a part of the book where he talks about how he competed in martial arts. And if you look at Tim Ferriss, I mean, he doesn't look like the stereotypical martial arts person, right?
No.
So I'm reading his book, and I'm like, how the world did he win? And of course, you read, you understand the process and the strategies he employed. But look, don't get it twisted. You don't have to look like these perfect people on Instagram with these like physiques that look like something out of a comic book, right? Just just taking a walk for 20, 30 minutes is exercise. Taking a run for 20, 30 minutes is exercise. Doing a handful of squats or push-ups or sit-ups or whatever it is that you do, that's exercise. Something that gets your heart beat up and makes you sweat a little bit, right? That'll give you more energy. That'll give you more clarity. That'll allow you to be more productive. Boxing, once again, it's time to think. And, look, no judgment here. I'm a parent, multiple businesses, multiple relationships, got things going on all the time. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going to have 2 minutes of sleep, right? So, what we're talking about here isn't coming out of some random vacuum or straight out of a book, right? But you still have to set aside time to say, okay, woosah, what am I trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What's most important? I think one of the most important productivity hacks you can have is having your goals in front of you all the time. Omnipresent, right? Whether it be on your phone, on your iPad, computer, in your notebook, journal, whatever it is you're using. I tell people and introduce my work with, I say, look, you should have your goals. I should be able to call you up and say, where are your goals? You should be able to put your hand on them in less than 5 seconds, right? having those things foremost on your mind will do wonders for your productivity. So you're not constantly having to think about, so what am I doing today? What am I taking aim at a month from now? You know, you got to have some consistency in your life. Your goals and having them in your face is kind of, imagine waking up every single day and the furniture in your house is in several different places. The blender isn't where it typically is. Your belts are hanging up somewhere else. Your toothbrush is in the basement today instead of the bathroom. It would completely mess up your day, right? It would take you an hour longer just to fix yourself breakfast if the spoons, knives, and skillets were all over the house as opposed to their desired place. Your goals operate the same way in your life, right? Looking at them creates that consistency. It organizes your mind in such a way where you're not spending so much mental energy thinking about what am I supposed to be doing next.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, a question that I oftentimes pose to individuals too is, look, define who your enemy is. I know it sounds weird, but define who your adversary really is. So often we are spending our energies and time targeting the wrong things, right? I operate in the B2B space, and so it would be easy for me to take aim at my quote-unquote competition. In other words, other people who are operating in the B2B space, have an audience with business owners, and sharing whatever their expertise is, right? I can spend a considerable amount of time, and I do spend a little bit of time just taking inventory of what other people are doing and what can I do to differentiate myself, right? But I don't think that's my true adversary. I could take time taking aim at my haters, right? And finding ways to punish my haters. And I will willingly admit, when a convenient opportunity comes up where it is laid out in front of me, sometimes I like to remind them, right? But that would not, in my mind, my haters are really not my true adversaries, right? That's not why I'm in business. You know, really take a long, hard look to ask who your enemy and your adversary is. For me, when I think about my enemy and my adversary, I think poverty is my adversary. I think disenfranchisement is my adversary. I think any of the systemic disadvantages or any other things that people need that is not immediately accessible to them to level up and grow and become their best selves and build successful businesses and live lives of satisfaction, that's really who my enemy and adversary is, right? And thinking about that puts me in a position where I can really take inventory of myself and say, what tools do I need to have? What things do I need to learn? What type of person or who do I need to become to really deal with this adversary, right? It's a big goal. It's a big objective. It's a huge adversary. And studying that adversary forces me to better understand also what I need to be doing, not just today, but 2, 10, 20, 30 years from now. I almost use as an example of as an investment advisor. I used to tell people, study your retirement. And they'd be 20 and 30 years old. And I'd be like, what are you telling me? Study your retirement, right? Literally take the time and ask yourself, what type of lifestyle you want to have? What do you want to be doing? What type of places you want to visit? Who do you want to spend your time with? What type of residence do you want to live in? What type of activities you want to be involved in? And I want you to study that. I want you to study the things you need to do and the person you need to become and the type of people you need to have around you in order to get to whatever that means for you in retirement, right? Study your enemy, study your adversary, study your end game, right? And focus on it. You don't need to get there today, but just ask yourself, what are some of the things I can do on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, whatever works best for you, right? To make sure that incrementally you're getting there, right? And that's another question I would really challenge people to ask themselves when you think about productivity and maximizing your energy and your effort. Because not to be redundant, but to be purposely redundant again, you can't manage time. You can't negotiate with time. Time does not care about your feelings. Time does not care that you're jealous of somebody else's time. Time does not care. It's going to move with or without you. So you cannot manage time. The only thing you can manage is your thinking, your behaviors, and your activity in the time that you have, right? And be okay with that.
I think another thing I hear a lot too that goes along with managing your people's time is they feel like they waste a lot of time. They're wasting a lot of time doing things that that are making them feel less productive, right? Even if they are still getting a lot done during the day and maybe they still are moving the needle forward in their business, there's something in them that's telling them this isn't it, right? This isn't it because I'm staring at my phone too much. I'm scrolling on social media too much. I'm watching too much TV. I'm whatever it is that's making you feel shame or guilt around like this productivity. What I found that is really important that when you're trying to curb things that you see and feel as time wasters is that you can't just be like, okay, I'm not going to look at my phone as much. Okay, I'm just not going to sit down and watch Netflix. You have to replace that time with something else because otherwise, eventually, and by eventually, I mean in a few days, you're going to get back into that habit. So I will say, like, I have an iPhone and the latest update on the iPhone allows you to really add more customization to how your phone is laid out. And one thing that I'm able to add is my daily screen time that stares me right in the face as soon as I unlock my phone. So the first thing I see when I unlock my phone is, here's how long you've already been on your phone, right? And if that is not, that was really helpful for me to put that on there, just to immediately go, oh, well, that number's way too big. I don't need to be on this, right? But it's not enough for me to just say like, okay, I won't be on my phone. I need to go then do something that I want to be replacing that time with: reading, exercising, making a proper meal, right? Or maybe it's something, or it's journaling, right? Whatever it is, or maybe it is other work or stuff like that. That's fine. But you can't just, you're not going to successfully be able to combat time wasters with just empty space and hope that you curb that behavior. You have to fill that with other things that are making you feel good about replacing it, because then you're going to be more encouraged to go do it. So for me, it's a lot of it is it's reading. I'm trying to dedicate. I'm someone who will sit and read a book for the whole day. I'm bad at like sitting for 10 minutes because otherwise now I want to read it the whole day. But but then what happens is I don't read for a long period of time because I think if I don't have a whole day, I can't read, right? So, but reality is the amount of time I'm staring at my phone, I could be knocking out books left and right, So for me, my biggest productivity hack tip is the reason why you feel that you need productivity tips or things to make you more productive is because you're doing things that don't feel productive. So you need to just replace that time, not just eliminate the wasters, the time wasters that you have identified as. You got to replace that with something intentionally,
Yeah, I mean, there's a flip side to it as well, though. And it's something that I've learned even recently. So I was the type of person, I worked like a machine, right? Wake up, to-do list, boom, 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 to the end of the evening. And I wouldn't give myself mental breaks. And I wouldn't give myself rewards. And I wouldn't just kind of take it easy for a moment, right? And I was that person that was looking at other people whom I saw taking a moment to eat their little avocado sandwich or whatever it is they were doing. And I would kind of look down on them like, you're going to spend 2 hours sipping on coffee, eating an avocado sandwich, and dipping in your phone? That's crazy, right? That was my mindset. I was that person that would look at someone and be like, did you really just spend an hour a night, 5-7 hours a week looking at some random Netflix program that didn't pour anything into you? And I think I was listening to, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, the former, the founder of Primerica. That's terrible. His name should fall right off my lips. Addison. And I remember listening to a talk that he gave, and he talked about this ideal of working really hard for 3-4 hour periods and then giving yourself a little bit of a break, right? Whatever that means for you. So whether you need a 30-minute break, an hour break, whatever the case, obviously not a 5-hour break, but you get the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working really hard and then taking a break, and then working really hard again and taking a break, and then working really hard again and taking a break. And I said, for me, I got to learn the science behind things, right? I want to know how effective it is by looking at it. And I started reading on it, and I started thinking about it from the standpoint of being in an anaerobic state, right? If you're working out, or if you're ever watching National Geographic, you watch the lion chasing the antelope, right? They're waiting for the antelope to get in an anaerobic state. And the bottom line is when you're working from sun up to sundown with urgency and speed and energy and high intensity, at some point your body does say, hold up, wait a minute, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the temptation is to work through that fatigue. And there are going to be times and there are going to be days and periods and seasons that you set in your business where that's necessary. But when you're in an anaerobic state, you can only keep that up for so long. Right? When you're in an anaerobic state physically, that means your body has depleted the oxygen, right? And it's running off other content inside of your body. It's running off other fuel. And your body's not designed to run off that fuel like that indefinitely. It's not designed to do that, right? Well, when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of doing the same thing to yourself when you're not taking those breaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do need to take a break to just laugh for a moment. Sometimes you do need to take a break to have a conversation with someone that just doesn't involve just building your business. Sometimes you need to take a break just to bring some levity to your life so you're not running yourself into the ground. Part of what motivated me to have this discussion with you today was, over the last week, I've had several entrepreneurs that I work indirectly with or directly with tell me they're sick, that they're tired, they're worn out, laid up in bed, can't move. I'm like, can't move. They're like, no, can't move. And as I was listening to them, I didn't hear any levity in their lives. They were literally waking up and running themselves to the ground and serving all these different masters, like your clients, requests, all this other stuff, and not taking any time for themselves. And I said, hold on, because I know what that can feel like. I haven't been there. I haven't had a nervous breakdown before, but I know there's 4 times I've been on the brink of it, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the one thing that caught my attention. I was like, you're not taking any time for yourself whatsoever. You got to recharge.
Yeah.
You got to come out this anaerobic state. And so there's a flip side to it, right? You have to be willing to give yourself rewards. Maybe you work straight through the week and you pick one day out the week where it's like, I'm not doing nothing, right? Or you pump the brakes. You cut that to-do list by 2/3. Maybe you run hard for 3 hours, take a break for 30 minutes, run hard for 3 hours, take a break for 30 minutes, whatever that looks like for you. You mentioned Elon Musk, earlier. Look, Elon Musk is an anomaly. That's a special person.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a special person right there. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone can operate off 3 hours sleep. Right?
No, we don't encourage it either.
Yeah, I firmly believe he's an anomaly. I'm not knocking him. Look, because he's able, for whatever reason, to do that. Look how much he's accomplished in a short amount of time. He's done a lot, right? But not everyone is going. And here's the other thing too, and you mentioned it, right? When you're looking at your phone constantly, when you're looking at Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, I want people to understand you are really, at the end of the day, you're looking at other people's content and you're being sold something.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of the time, when you're on there, you're being sold something. And oftentimes you're being sold other people's lifestyles. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is, whether you realize it or not, you begin comparing yourself to other people. You begin asking yourself, this person's there, why am I not there? Or this person's living this lifestyle, why don't I have these things? Or this person's accomplished A, B, C, and D, and you start taking inventory of your accomplishments. And that is, once again, you're identifying the wrong things to take aim at, right? I purposely, and I encourage other entrepreneurs, look, this way I look at it. During the NFL season, last season, the season before last, when the protests were taking place, right? And there was this whole to do about whether or not to watch the games or not. For me, that wasn't a tough choice because I realized a long time ago, look, I don't mind, look, I celebrate. You see this entertainment as an athlete, what it is you do, that's great. I may watch your art every now and again for the inspiration and to say, that's fantastic. But I got my own Super Bowl to play. I got my own NBA championship to play. I have my own whatever to play. I got my own game. And I'll be damned if I spend hours a day celebrating other people's achievement, but I got my own achievements to get excited about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to kind of adopt that attitude as well. Like, be careful about how much time you're spending on social media, particularly if it's not to achieve a particular goal. Right. Don't spend so much time eavesdropping and dipping too far into other people's lives when the reality matters, you have your own life to live and you have your own goals and your own ambitions and your own achievements to celebrate and get excited about. That's something you can do to really get your mind right and make sure you're focused and productive on the right, being productive in the right areas of your life too.
I agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have another 2 pages. I know we're running up against time. Some things that I think people can do practically though for real is, plan. You hear this all the time, but it's so true. Plan your day the night before you put your head down. Write down the things you need to do. So once again, when you wake up, you're on autopilot. Once again, I use athletics. I think athletics and entrepreneurship have a lot in common, but you have that athlete that during the game, they pass the ball, he shoots the 3-pointer, and it looks like it's just with ease. There's no effort. It's effortless, right? And it's because of that constant practice. Well, developing the type of habits that increase your productivity is the exact same way. You're not going to adopt a new habit or a new strategy today, and it's going to work smoothly. You got to practice that thing. You got to do that thing where it becomes like spaced repetition. You just get better at it, the same way that athletes get better at performing a particular task, right? You have to be willing to do that. One of those things you should do is plan your activities the night before. So when you wake up, you look at your journal, you look at whatever electronic equipment you're utilizing, and it's already done. So you can wake up and be on autopilot. And literally, at least for the first 2-3 hours of your day, you're getting stuff done that you intended to get done. Because when you wake up, obviously the world has an agenda, and that agenda is usually to get you employed doing other things beyond what was on your to-do list, right? That's a productivity habit that I think people can apply immediately. Another thing that individuals can apply immediately just for the sake of, once again, productivity is really sitting down and prioritizing the things that matter most. I'm looking at a to-do list of at least 20 items right now on the other side of this page. There are certain things on the to-do list that must happen. They must transpire. And I encourage people to identify those 2 or 3 things, and that's it. Don't try to get 20 things. You're not going to get it done, okay? Identify the top 3 things that matter the most. Do that for yourself, right? Those are some real practical things I think people can easily adopt. And of course, I'll beat this like a dead horse. Read books on productivity. Just be careful about who you're reading. Copy the right cats, right? There are some people out here who really are not entrepreneurs who just made a living writing books.
Yeah.
I like to read the books of individuals who actually built and achieved things because I know I'm getting it from the source, right? I'd encourage people to do that.
Yeah. Agreed. And then, just like we started it, taking care of yourself. Yeah. If some of those tasks are first thing in the morning, are the autopilot tasks are taking care of yourself of whatever you need to do, because you know that if you don't do these right away, then they're not going to get done. And that's what you do. So it's so important. But let us know in the comments, what helps you stay productive? Or if you're struggling with that, what did you take away from this talk? What are you going to implement? Or where else are you still feeling like you're struggling with this? And let's talk about it. So with that, we are going to wrap this up, and we will see you all next week. Thank you again.